Hello everybody, SlimKirby here, and welcome back to the Animal Crossing Let's Play. You're currently watching the abridged portion of this playthrough, where I cut out all the fluff and simply talk about my adventures of playing through an entire year of Animal Crossing in a summary format. If you'd rather watch the playthrough in its entirety, check out the video description for a link to a playlist that has all the episodes and stream sessions I've done, raw and unedited. But if you'd rather stick around for these videos, well, just sit back and enjoy my adventures through Popstar. Wednesday, October 24th. Gracie was back in town today, and after mashing my A button like mad, she gave me a shirt I had already gotten from her. God, I really freaking hate item repeats in this game, seriously. It's probably the main reason why I've never even gone for an entire catalog completion before. It just seems like the game could at least wait until you've cycled through everything before you get the duplicates. Kind of like Wisp, or one of the holidays we'll be looking at coming up in the future. Just seems like a weird game design choice to me. I will say, I did enjoy the altered flavor text of when I first started talking to Gracie though, since I was wearing the last shirt she got for me, and she actually gave me a little more insight about the piece, which means she does actually pay attention to what you're wearing, and that's kinda neat. Aside from that, though, it was a pretty uneventful day. I did finally get another ranch item after what feels like a bajillion years. I swear, you always seem to get furniture set items when you're not actively trying to collect them. Also, my letter theme of the day was Hotel Mario. Yep, slowly losing my mind here, folks. Thursday, October 25th. The last day of mushrooming is finally here, which means we can stop doing it. Yay! Again, as I stated before, the event is probably not as bad as I'm making it. It's really only for those who are still in the bell collecting phase of the game, and it's at least more interactive than what the sports fair was last month. But still, I kinda wish there was more to it. Thankfully, the mushrooming gets better in future games when they actually assign a furniture theme to go along with it. With one multi-day event on its way out, though, the bulletin board reminds me that we'll have another one coming up soon for the month of November, in the form of the Fall Fishing Tourney. This will be a lot better than the mushrooming, though. Not only is it reserved for 1 day per week, but you can also do it throughout the day as well, so we aren't locked up to one particular time slot, which is very nice. Obviously, though, we'll talk more about that in November when it's relevant. We also talked to Pete again, and he finally reveals how hot he is for Phyllis, which, ugh. Seriously, dude, don't mess with Pelly's heart like that, please. Not cool. Also, being another 5 days since our last encounter, I meet up with Wisp again, who gives us a shirt for the 4th time in a row. I swear, this little ghostie is really obsessed with our fashion game, huh? Friday, October 26th. With mushrooming no longer in our heads, it's time to start thinking about the next October holiday, Halloween, which, technically, I've already been preparing for it. I have plenty of candy in my house, almost too much if you ask me, and we still have a few days to hoard more if we need to. So at this point, we're just kind of waiting for it. Which means, yeah, not a lot to talk about here. I did try playing a ball game with Miss Ava67, but she was not impressed and promptly kicked the ball right into the water, which caused me to follow it downstream on its amazing journey. I also bought another shovel today because I noticed we had a decent gold spot again and thought I would get my gold shovel back again. Had to renew it somehow, right? Saturday, October 27th. Well, I hope you guys weren't too used to counting sheep to go to sleep because once again, 1 week after she moved in, Barbara is already gone. And yeah, once again, I didn't write her any letters either, so her departure was actually expected in this case. I don't know. I was actually kind of excited to get to know her at first, but nothing really clicked for me, and nothing really got moving either. And by the time this day rolled around, it was, well, already too late. Man, though, this hole of snooty villagers we've been getting since Monique left is really getting bigger and bigger. However, we do have a new snooty villager that I'm actually kind of interested in getting to know and keep around long-term, or longer-term anyway. Say hello to Valise the Kangaroo, or Mama V as I'm gonna start calling her from now on. I think a kangaroo villager is actually kinda cool because you're technically getting 2 villagers for the price of 1, since they have that little baby in their pouch. Which, no, unfortunately the baby doesn't actually talk or interact with you at all, but still, it's a cute aspect of the kangaroo villagers. I will say though, neighbor shuffling aside, there was actually some relevance to this day that I was actually pretty satisfied with. For one, I finally got a ranch wall, the wallpaper for the ranch series, that I started working on at the beginning of the month. And two, Penny buried a regal cupboard underground. Now, I'm not really going for the regal series right now, but this is relevant because the regal cupboard is actually a lottery raffle item, which are generally more rare than your standard Nook shop items, and I wouldn't have known this if I didn't start keeping track of my catalog items in the first place. Which goes to show you that there is a good reason to follow along with these bulletin board scavenger hunts, as they can give you some good stuff that would otherwise be hard or too luck-based to obtain easily, so I'm really thankful I started keeping track of that. Another reason why this catalog checklist has been a godsend is that while I was chatting with Ava67, right after she hilariously kicked another ball into the river again, she wanted one of my items and was prepared to give me 3,000 bells or a speed sign for it. Now, normally I would have gone with the bells, but I actually didn't have the speed sign marked off in my catalog yet, which actually made me go for that item instead. Just having that extra info is surprisingly making the catalog clearing seem way more attainable than it probably would have been otherwise, and is actually giving these days a little more weight and substance, I think. So I think that was a very good call on my part. Sahara was also in town again, so I also got a few more of her carpets that I haven't acquired yet too, so it was a very productive day for the catalog, I'd say. Moving on to the music, the town tunes for the previous video were actually Bloody Tears from Castlevania and the Luigi's Mansion theme. For this week's tune, we have this little jingle. Name that tune, folks. And once again, we closed the night with some KK sliders, so we listened to DJ KK. Sunday, October 28th. Very quick day with not much to discuss or talk about. Didn't even buy turnips because I just wasn't interested. However, I did find the regal cupboard that was buried by Penny yesterday. I actually even kind of forgot about it if I'm being honest. Thankfully, it stuck around so I could still acquire it and remove it from my catalog. I also found a rather interesting outfit in the dump today with a Big Bros shirt. Basically, a Mario outfit. Man, was 2007 a year where Mario was just heavily trashed or something? After thinking about it, it couldn't be, as that was the year Mario Galaxy released, so probably just an angry Sony or Microsoft fan or something. That was when the console wars were pretty heavily going on, right? Monday, October 29th. Another uneventful day filled with mostly mental preparation for the last day of the month. Although, I should say that only the day portion of this day was uneventful, because I did go visit Wisp tonight. Finding the spirits was actually kind of annoying tonight too, but damn, Wisp certainly made up for it when he gave me the ranch flooring, one of my house's theme items I was still looking for. Heck, I think at this point I only need 2 more ranch items to actually have the set completed, but they are unfortunately items we'll need to get from Crazy Red, so it could still be a while until we get that. Still though, a very awesome win for the Ghost, I must say. Tuesday, October 30th. It's the penultimate day of October, and we actually had 2 visitors today. Gulliver washed up on our beaches and gave us a mermaid statue. Wendell also showed up today and gave us some more wallpaper. It doesn't take a genius to find out which gift was better. Hint, it's the mermaid statue. Wendell is still unfortunately holding out on that space wall. I also decided to write Valise a letter today as well. I'm still getting to know her, but I'm starting to like her more than both of our previous snooties, so she's definitely leaving a good impression on me. I'm still pretty fond of Cupcake too, plus she did help us get our first cherry tree, but I'm sure being the only kangaroo in town definitely gives Mama V an exotic advantage for sure. Wednesday, October 31st. Happy Halloween, everyone! We have a long night ahead of us in terms of the spooktacular festivities, but before that happens, we have some other end-of-month duties to take care of. It being the last day of the month means we have another monthly raffle to get through, and to my shock, not only was there only one item I had to get for the catalog this time, it was also another NES game, and this time I wasn't going to leave without it, even if it meant getting more visits from Mr. Rossetti. Thankfully, we had 0 visits from the mole this time, and more than that, I actually got all 3 items very, very quickly, so that was a nice change of pace from last month. Anyway, as I said, we have our first NES game now, in the form of Excitebike. If you take it back to your house and interact with the console, you can actually play the NES Excitebike, which is kind of a neat feature. Now, I wouldn't say this game is amazing by any stretch, and honestly, that's probably the case for most of the NES games you can get in this fashion, but it's still very cool for Nintendo to even have an inclusion of this nature, so I'll give them props to some degree here. I honestly haven't played much Excitebike. Most of my experience is from my NES Remix Let's Plays, honestly, but this game is probably one of the better inclusions that are available here. Now, are you guys ready for the scary stuff? And no, I'm actually still not talking about Halloween yet. While I was wandering around town, I discovered a dig spot that I quickly uncovered and was absolutely flabbergasted by what I found. I actually found a second NES game on the same day as I got my first one. What are the freaking chances, seriously? But yeah, apparently Penny was feeling super generous and decided to bury a copy of the NES game called Tennis, so I claimed the gift and very quickly took it to my pad to try it out. It's a retro tennis game, and that's really all I have to say about it. In an age with Mario Tennis and more tightly controlled tennis simulation games, this game does show its age, unfortunately, and I really don't see myself coming back to it. Still though, it's really cool that I found it at least. Okay, let's actually move on to the Halloween stuff, because we do have a decent amount of stuff to cover here. First and foremost, the festivities start properly at 6 p.m., and they last all the way until 1 a.m., so you actually have a lot of time to mess with this event. 2, if you plan to wander around town, make sure you have nothing important in your inventory, and if you do, make sure you at least have some candy with you in an effort to prevent your item from being vandalized and tampered with. Why is that important, you ask? Well, all of your neighbors become sugar-high, candy-crazed maniacs that will try to run you down and take any candy in your possession. And trust me, I mean that. The moment you enter their acre, they will beeline straight towards you. And if they touch you, they will give you the million-dollar question, trick or treat. If you cater to their sugar rush and give them a piece of candy, they will leave you alone. Until you leave the acre and come back, because they will be out to get you again on repeated visits. If you refuse to acknowledge their sugar addiction, they will play a trick on you, which will either result in them turning one of your items into a dummy jack-o'-lantern furniture item, or one of your pieces of clothing into a ripped and torn shirt. This is why I said don't carry anything important with you. Otherwise, yeah, that item will be gone. Here's the real purpose of this event, though. In one of your acres in town, you'll also find another NPC that won't chase after you. This NPC is Jack, the hero of Halloween. Jack will not play any tricks on you, rather he'll actually reward you if you manage to locate him and give him a piece of candy. And his reward is actually pretty good, since it's a piece of the Spooky Furniture series, a Halloween-themed furniture set that you can only get in this fashion. In this set, you have 10 furniture pieces, as well as a matching wallpaper and carpet, making it 12 total items overall. And yes, you can technically get them all in one Halloween night if you're crafty enough. Now, here's why I said technically. After you get an item from Jack, he will move to a different acre, which means you will have to locate him again. Also, I believe you need to change your clothes as well. At least that's what the guides I use say, because he can recognize that you've been given an item already and not reward you as a result. So change your clothes just to be safe. And remember that you can use pattern designs as well. What makes this difficult is that when trying to find Jack, you will have to avoid your neighbors in the process. And like I said before, they are candy-hungry vultures that will charge you down like a hyper-rhinoceros, and in some cases you may have to sneak by acres full of them in order to get to the acre Jack is currently residing in. This especially sucked for me because I have villagers who literally live next to my only 2 hill slopes in town, so if Jack was on the bottom of town, I either had to let go of a piece of candy just to get by, or somehow lure them to one side, move around to the other side, and dash through whenever there was an opening. Not a very comfortable process, I have to say. What makes this process even worse though, and the main reason why I didn't even bother completing the furniture series on this day, is the fact that you can very easily get duplicate items. Seriously, after only a few runs of this, I was already getting duplicates from Jack, and I wasn't even halfway through the series yet. That should not be able to happen until you at least have every item in the catalog, and it really annoys me because the game could have easily been programmed in that fashion. I mean, look at Wisp for crying out loud. It's a shame because this furniture series is actually really cool, and I would have liked to show the entire set for you guys. But I just did not want to mess with RNG in this playthrough, especially when I had only finite amounts of candy in my possession to begin with. Luck is not something I enjoy, and I certainly wasn't going to go all Solid Snake around town for a few hours just to play with that luck either. There were a few funny and silly moments though, not gonna lie. There we go. She ripped my clothes. Oh my god, Cherry ripped my clothes off. It's fine, they don't know how to use the bridge. See? Haha, you can't do this, you can't do this. Oh god, they figured it out. Oh, and before I forget, make sure you stop by the town fountain and talk to Tortimer during this event as well. He'll give you another exclusive holiday item in the form of the model for Katrina's tents. Well guys, we've made it through another month, and that's the 3rd full month of this playthrough, and more than half of July as well. We're making some really good progress, and we're officially more than 1/4 through this series, which is kind of a neat prospect. Moving on to November, I admittedly didn't really have any major goals in mind. November is actually pretty heavy on holidays and events, so naturally we'll be dealing with those for a great deal of the time. And while I could focus my time on the HRA and getting my house score up, I might actually wait until December on that, since I'm still trying to finish up some furniture sets anyway, and the Thanksgiving furniture set is probably the easiest set to complete as it is. So I should be in good position to knock that out of the park then. So yeah, I guess we'll just keep on moving forward then. Thankfully though, the catalog checklist is giving us something more to work towards though, so we'll at least have that to fill in some of the less interesting days. Thursday, November 1st. I sold all of my Halloween stuff because I didn't complete the furniture set anyway, and it is worth mentioning that the holiday series do sell for quite the number of bells. So even if you are interested in completing them, it is actually kind of worth collecting a few just to sell them for some nice money in your pocket. Anyway, now that we are in November, you're probably wondering, what insects and fish are available now? Well, much like October, we only have one new bug to get. And admittedly, this bug might take me a little while to obtain. While the bee may be the hardest bug to acquire, the mole cricket is probably the hardest bug to find. During the months of November through May, the mole cricket can be found underground. In order to locate it, you either have to use sound or the help of your neighbors to find it, as they'll be looking at the ground curiously if one is nearby. Then, as you might expect, you have to dig it up to get it to appear on screen. I've never been good at using sound as a clue to find stuff, so this will definitely be a challenge for me. But thankfully, I have a stream chat to help me with this goal, and a lot of time to work with it as well, so I'm sure we'll get it at some point. In fact, it may actually be easier to wait until December to find one, just because less bugs will spawn in the regular during that month anyway. For fish, yeah, once again, we're not getting anything new, but once we make it to December, we'll be able to cut our fish list in half. Not to mention, we still have 2 fish that are waiting a second town to acquire anyway. For the rest of the day, I just did a neighbor day. I wrote Dina a letter teaching her all about internet meme culture with the duck song. We found out that Portia doesn't actually have a bed to sleep on, although I guess she is a dog, I suppose. and I witnessed perhaps the most advanced brutality ever on my pal Ricky when both Lily and Dina were giving him a really hard time for some reason. I don't know if he just got rejected by 2 girls at once or something, but my guess is that it has to be Ricky's cranky personality type. Come on, dude, these are really nice girls, and you live pretty close to both of them as well. You gotta open your heart a little and let the good side come out from time to time. It'll do wonders, I promise. Friday, November 2nd. Took a trip to the island again and did manage to knock out a few more items off of my catalog checklist, but I am still coming up empty on the island exclusive items in NES games. I may have to look more into this process to see if I'm doing something wrong. I honestly would be trying this a lot more if I didn't only have an original GBA system. Those who had advanced SPs growing up, you were one of the lucky ones, as having no backlight is really rough. I also have been noticing that Cupcake and Stu have a pretty decent friendship going on, although I suppose they'd better be, considering they are neighbors and everything. Still though, with Cupcake being snooty, I'd always assume that she would have issues there. Anyway, I wrote her a letter to give her kudos on her kindness, and we'll see if that evolves into anything from there. Oh, and Nook had one of his craptacular sales again, although I will say that this time he actually sprung for 3 items instead of 1 or 2, and one of them was an item I didn't have yet, so this is probably the most successful sale so far. At the end of the day, I tried looking for the mole cricket for a bit of time. I thought I heard it at one point, but wasn't able to uncover anything, so it may have just been another bug in one of the adjacent acres, or maybe even the bagworm. I don't know, it's really hard to find this pest. Like I said, December might be the ideal time to look for it. I also tried doing the money tree trick again by planting some bells next to Nook's shop. It finally seemed like the gold spot was in a good place for it, so I figured why not. Saturday, November 3rd. It's another very quick day in town, and we have a big day ahead of us, so I'll make this entry brief to get ready for that. Probably the funniest and most adorable happening today was when Cherry was trying to act like Joan and sell me turnips. No actual transactions can happen like this, but still, it's a cute touch. Would have been awesome to buy turnips for 9 bells though. Although, for Cherry, I would buy turnips from her no matter the price. I love her that much. Moving on to musical night Saturdays, this week's town tune is the following. Name that tune. And for KK Slider, we will chill with the doggo while listening to some KK Condor. Sunday, November 4th. Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to the first of what will end up being 4 fishing tournaments for the month of November. That's right, we have another month-long event, but thankfully, unlike both the morning aerobics and mushrooming season, it's actually held throughout the day and only 1 day per week, which means we don't necessarily have to wake up early for it, nor do we have to really plan our routine around it either, making it one of the best multi-day events of the entire game. Before we get started though, it's probably worth mentioning that it is actually snowing today. Now, don't worry, the snow is not going to stick on the ground just yet, and for the time being, it'll pretty much get treated as the equivalent of rain, so there's not really anything you have to do here. I'm not entirely sure if this means you can get a coelacanth when it's snowing. I know that you can in other Animal Crossing games, but as far as guides I've read for this game in particular, it's never mentioned snow with the coelacanth, definitively. But again, considering they're treated as the same weather condition in a lot of respects, I wouldn't argue against anyone that says you can in this game as well. Just being honest here. Also, it's Sunday, which means Joan is here. But turnips were 127 bells, which means I gave Joan 127 different ways of saying, no, I'm not paying that much money for your silly gambling trinkets. Getting to the actual fishing tournament, the basics of this tourney are quite simple. A beaver named Chip will be in the Lake District from 6 AM until 6 PM, and he will give you the lowdown on the tournament. This particular tourney, the fall tournament, is what's referred to as a bass competition. So during the fall, you can only submit bass to chip, and the only ones that are acceptable entries are small bass, bass, and large bass. I don't think sea bass will count, and even if they do, they aren't beating the sizes of large bass anyway, so just stick with the river on this one. When you give a bass to chip, he will measure it and determine what its size is, and the player or animal with the largest size by 6 p.m. will win the tournament for that day. Now, here's the two kickers. For one, you have no idea what the size of the fish will be until you turn it into chip. Unless my eyes just plain fail me, I don't think you can tell at all when you catch the fish, or even by its shadow size. So in other words, the final size is likely a hidden value that just gets assigned to a fish when you catch it or turn it into chip. And I don't think there's any way to know for sure otherwise. 2, as I said before, the other animals are competing too, and they can turn in fish pretty much whenever they want to. I've turned in fish literally minutes before the buzzer before, just for another villager to surpass me again before the timer ran out. So you really need to be on top of your game here, or know the right time to turn your fish in, so you still get the prize before they have a chance to beat you. The sizes you generally want to aim for are in the mid to high 20 ranges, which can really only be gotten by large bass. Regular bass will only give you high teen values, and the small bass even lower, so only aim for the big boys. At 6 p.m. the results are pretty much closed at that point, and if you head back to your house, you can find out who won by looking at the bulletin board. If you manage to come out on top, Chip will actually send you your prize in the mail, so enjoy your reward proudly if that ends up being the case. Otherwise, you'll just have to try again next time. For this week, since I was still trying to get a feel for how the tournament worked, I really wasn't going for the win here. However, I did want to at least try to have the standing record at any one time. I did end up getting a large bass at one point, and when I turned it in the chip, I actually managed to beat the current record that was held by Jeremiah. For beating the record, Chip gave me an office desk, which I assume is just a random piece of furniture you can select, but trust me, the reward for winning the tourney is a whole lot better and unique. However, we'll have to see what that is later, as Ricky ended up beating my record later in the day when I wasn't even on, as I didn't come back into town until much later after the tournament was already over. I recommend that if you want to get the win, you have to come back later in the day, closer to 6 p.m. That way, you can try to affect the standings right before they actually close. It's no guarantee, mind you, but I think it does improve your chances a little. Also, don't forget to talk to Tortimer today either. Although not really a holiday, he does have a unique event item that he will give out during these Sundays, a fishing trophy, which is basically just a participation trophy more than anything. Before we close this day though, there was one more piece of business I had to do, as it had been a couple of days since I last saw Wisp, and I wanted to get another new item from him. And let me tell you guys, I was absolutely flabbergasted by this selection, because out of the hundreds and hundreds of items I still had missing from the catalog, Wisp actually chose something I was actively trying to get again for the second time in a row, and, well, I'll let my reaction speak for itself. Oh my god, I want to make out with Wisp right now. Okay, maybe not one of my finer moments, as I just exclaimed that I wanted to make out with a paranormal being, but come on, I've been waiting for the Lunar Horizon space wallpaper for so very long now. Wendell was already holding back on us, and despite having worse odds with Wisp here, the Ghost Boy actually came through for me, so hey, a win is a win here. Also, the reactions I had from chat were pretty hilarious too, not gonna lie. Anyway, with the wallpaper obtained, I just needed one more piece of furniture to complete the space theme, a satellite, and with it being just a normal shop item, I know it will appear at some point. It's just a matter of when now. Or who knows, maybe Wisp will come through again. We'll just have to wait and see. That will do it for another Animal Crossing episode. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Reminder that you can find links in the video description for the unedited recording sessions of this playthrough, as well as individual links to the streams in particular that featured the days covered in this episode summary. Until we meet again, this has been SlimKirby, and I'll see you guys next time. Later, folks.